it comes to the same point that the personality.
As we study the Enneagram, we know that each point of view brings a constant focus of attention to each and every aspect of their lives. Personality is driven by this focus of attention. In this video, we hear 9 students at Milton Academy who, in describing how they are motivated to learn, also describe that general focus of attention. We begin with point 3, the core of the image types, always moving into action. The focus of attention for the 3 goes to tasks, to getting things done.
Growing up in general really motivated me to learn more, to sort of foster a love for education, and not just for the sake of getting good grades, but because, I genuinely like to learn new things. I'm constantly interested in things like that. So if a teacher's dynamic and is interested in the students' learning as opposed to just sitting in front of a class and for the sake of sitting there and getting paid it, that doesn't do much for me. But if you have a teacher who's really involved in the class and asks questions and has fun material to work with, I think that's really important. And I think that brings out, a motivation to learn in anyone. I also think, I don't think I learn purely for the sake of books. I think, obviously, again, it's a motivator, but I find myself not as much learning for the sake of the books. I think because, I want to grow in knowledge and all that good stuff, But I also have this sort of view of the future, and that view of the future involves an education and working hard towards that. So I think I'd say one of the biggest motivators is the future and what the future holds. And I definitely call myself a goal-oriented person in general. Going to a good college, that's been on my mind for, as long as I can remember, and working hard to try to get to that point is also important. And not in goals academically, socially, athletically, whatever it is. Well, again, I'm constantly thinking of the future, and whatever I do now, whether it's soccer or speech team or getting good grades, they're all little bits and pieces that will come together to form this big picture, or form they're all like the blueprints of life. Achieving tasks on a daily basis is like really important. To give you an example, the beginning of this week, I haven't gone to bed until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, not even worrying about my health or how much sleep I'm getting. It's what I'm worried about is, I've got to get this done. I've got to lay out the Milton paper. I've got to finish this paper. I've got to do my math homework. I just lay down my schedule, and it has to get done regardless of what time it is or how I'm feeling or whether I'm, dozing out to sleep at my computer. It's actually funny. I'm sitting at 3 o'clock in the morning looking at myself. Here I'm tired. I'm probably going to get sick, but I have to finish this. And that always takes precedence over, sleep. I have to finish this. And I find myself doing that in not only academics, soccer field. I've got to make that last save as a goalie, I don't care if I'm too tired, it's all up here. It's all mental. So, if you overcome that mental aspect of the game, you can make that last save and make 100 more if you wanted to. It's just all in the head and all getting things done. Failure is a word, of course, everyone wants to ignore, but I think, I will admit that at times I will fail, but I think that I focus more on the fact that, okay, yeah, I might have failed that, but it's all sort of a building of character, and again, building this huge picture, this blueprints of life to the future. Failure builds character, and failure also helps you, it motivates you to do better. I think learning represents the future in a way to me, because it's like that there's a door between me now and what the future holds, and there are many different keys, but there's like one of the biggest keys would be learning. It's kind of funny. A lot of people think, people who are attention grabbers, they're just showboats. They're out to, make themselves look good at the expense of others, maybe. But I don't think it's necessarily negative. I think it's interesting. For instance, like when I ran for head monitor and I was up there giving a speech, in front of 600 plus people, it made me feel good. All these it's 1,200 eyes are on you, and it just sends that feeling through you. It makes me nervous, obviously, but it gives you that, it's a feeling that's almost indescribable. It's amazing. I mean, any attention, a place where you're the center of attention, it just, I don't know, it's important to me. It gives me a great sense of pride, and it motivates me, I suppose.
Point 6. The core of the fear types. Here, attention is focused on potential threats. 6s scan the environment. Questioning and doubting. 2 aspects of the 6 that motivate learning.
I like to learn the most when I feel like I'm making a connection with what I'm learning, and when, especially this year, as in each of my subjects, I find that I can make connections to other subjects from one subject. Like the French and the English literature I'm doing right now are parallel in the time frame. And on the paper I just finished, I found this quote from Rousseau, and I just found it was very similar to the Romantics. And I liked the way, I thought, because Rousseau is a little bit before the Romantics, I thought that maybe the Romantics actually looked at Rousseau and were inspired by him. And I like making discoveries like that on my own. I think that's another kind of learning that I like a lot, is seeing myself sort of move from one place to another in the way I react to situations. Well, recently, a lot of things have been going kind of badly for me. Just, for example, in track, I didn't have the greatest season, and I got into some trouble with my coach, and I didn't get a position that I had applied for on the Magus. And these things, I feel like I've gotten a much thicker skin from these, and I like the feeling of having a thicker skin, because it's so important for going to college and for interacting with people who you're not necessarily going to get along with very well. I don't usually doubt myself too much. I mean, I feel comfortable in who I am, and it's usually I look at other people and I think, what are they doing? They're acting absolutely crazy. Like that whole thing we were talking about today in conformity. I mean, I don't conform, I don't think. I mean, of course I do, because most teenagers do in some way or another. But compared to other people, I don't like the feeling of conforming. Sometimes when you see, you can almost predict what somebody's going to act like. And also, this is just another little observation. Sometimes I just notice that people, they talk, and they don't necessarily understand what another person is saying. Like, I might be talking about something, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I'm having a conversation with, like, a friend, and I don't see how they could know what I'm talking about if I don't know what I'm talking about. But they act like they do. And so you're just sort of sitting there inside yourself thinking, this is such a funny situation. I'm sitting here going on and on about something. I have no idea what I'm talking about. And they're just acting like they have a perfect grasp of everything I'm saying. The value of work for me is that I like to go through the process and, again, to be learning as I'm doing it, and to be making new realizations about the way things link together, the different ideas in similar time periods, and the way one time period leads into another, like the age of the intellectual stuff, and then moving into the age of romanticism as sort of a reaction to that. The reason I think that I do not have a big problem with procrastinating, this is really what I think, is because I've been going to Milton Academy, and I've sort of been molded into, you get your work done. And also my type goes to a 3, so the performer. But what I'll do is I sit down to do some homework, and say it's a French reading. I know I have 25 pages to read. And so last night I was reading this in François de Champy, and for the first 15 pages I was fine. And then my mind started wandering, so it's sort of like I'm on 2 completely different levels. Like my mind is somewhere way out there, and then I'm kind of reading it, but I'm not absorbing it. So I think I have trouble just getting down to the work and getting it finished. But last night, I was doing this math problem, and it was one that I had tried before and I hadn't gotten, and it took me a really long time to get the math problem because there was a lot of algebra in it, but I was very absorbed in it because I was having problems with the algebra, and it took me like 2 hours, but I was concentrated basically the whole time. So once I get absorbed in something, and I'm really committed to it, and I feel a connection to the material or the reading material or whatever, I can concentrate. But if I'm kind of, and now that I know that it's part of my type to be a procrastinator, I worry about the procrastination. I think that I'm going to procrastinate. In track this season, I think the reason I didn't succeed was because there was a very specific part of my race that I needed to work on, and I had never, in practice, I had never proved to myself that I could overcome this barrier in my race, which was making my 3rd lap faster. And so I think that in order to overcome barriers in learning, I have to know that I can do it. Like if I want to overcome an obstacle of really feeling nervous and not knowing how to do something, it's just I do have to work through it and just learn, show myself that I can do it by doing a problem several times. So certain things like that, I can become really obsessed with. And then with some people, I really like some people, and I'll sort of feel like I want to, I'm committed to them in a way, and I won't become annoyed with them. And with other people, I just become completely annoyed with them. I can't stand even seeing their face, and every single thing they say annoys me, and the intonation of their voice, and the way they look, and their stiffness of their shoulders, and all that. So I can become obsessed with like one little fault. In my head, I feel like there's always several layers of what I'm thinking about. And then sometimes I'll think to myself, oh, is there any way that I couldn't think about that? And then you know that it's going to come back to you again and again. I do things like that, like little mind games with myself. But I'm always, yeah, I definitely think a lot. And I don't really understand what it would be like not to think as much.
Point 9 is the core of the anger types. 9s have forgotten themselves. Their energy and motivations arise in the outer world, not from within. 9's attention is focused on the agendas of others.
I think what motivates me to learn is just my own personal interest, really. Like I get a certain satisfaction out of achieving, and also, well, I mean, I think if you define learning just in general as inside or outside of the school, yeah, I'll learn a lot of things outside of the school just because it gives me a little pleasure. The class that I learn the most are always the ones that either interest me the most or that are the easiest, that you go day by day, and there's someone like pushing you every day. If it's a topic that interests me, I'll buy into it to a certain extent. But usually what the other person pushing me does is get me to a situation where I know if I don't work there'll be consequences, or that it's an obligation and that I have to do something or I'll be in trouble, basically. Is I went to visit colleges, and a friend's sister's roommate just took me around for the day, and someone who I'd never met before, and I was very grateful, and I just wanted to write a thank you letter to, with no one told me to, and I was planning on doing it, and I just couldn't. I never got around to it because if there were nothing was going to happen to me, and I'll probably never see her again. So it was hard for me to just I would think about it every once in a while too, but I would just say I'll do it later. I'll do it at the end of the day. I would never just get up and do it. I want to be challenged and have to want to learn about something, and to be interested in something, because actually I do like learning, and I do like school, and I like the achievement that comes with it, and I like improving myself. But I remember freshman science, I was interested for about the first half of the year, and it was a pretty easy course, but I just got sick of it. And it was really, so I would even though it would have taken me a very slight amount of work, I couldn't really get much. I couldn't, it just didn't really, I didn't see any point in doing homework, because it wasn't going to give me any answer. It wasn't going to make me better or happier in any way. Well, success for me is personal satisfaction. That can take different forms, with my wrestling. It's on a different level. It's not an intellectual level, but just knowing that I can be good, and that I can beat a lot of people, and in that way, it gives me a good satisfaction. And the fact that I poured so much work into it, and I got this direct, tangible result. I mean, overall, I do want to learn everything that there is in school. Because I think it's worthwhile, or they wouldn't be teaching this. A lot of times I just don't have enough interest in it, so that it's really the obligation of getting good grades and getting into a good college that's driving me to sit down and work. Every once in a while I do just get home and run through my assignments like while I'm still fresh and energetic, and then have time for other things. But usually I'll just I won't start work until dinner, and then a lot of times after dinner I figure I can start at 8 and I'll be fine. So I'll just like I'll watch TV for a while, and or I'll just sit around and wait for a while, and then and eventually just get started. And yeah, usually I don't pay much attention to rules and regulations, because I mean they don't really, they're kind of meaningless. Like they don't bring any happiness to follow them, or they're not gonna, it's not gonna give me anything to do like certain things. Yeah, I think I'm fairly smart, and so usually, just knowing that, I just do what it takes to keep up a good grades and to keep being a good student. So I think I'm a good student in that sense, because I always do end up performing well. On the other hand, I think that I'm not a fully achieving student. Like, I see other kids that spend like hours and hours working, and I just can't even imagine it. I don't want to do it. So I don't know if I'm like a great student in terms of my own potential, because I think I could spend hours and hours more working.
Point 1 is another of the anger types. Ones live in a world where a sense of inner direction drives them to achieve. They seek a perfection in the world that is unattainable. Ones live with an inner sense of judging. Their focus of attention is on knowing what is right and what is wrong.
I guess what motivates me to learn most is sort of an internal, I have an internal judge of what is right and what is the best thing that I can possibly do, and I'm always trying to measure up to that. I would say, I always have very high standards of my own. It's not really other people's standards that are what make me work hard. Even things like art, like painting and things like that. When I say, if I was in 5th grade or something, even things like doing artwork that wasn't going to be graded or anything like that, and I always would have to have it my certain way, and people could never really understand why I had to work so hard and get so sort of agitated about little details. But it's something inside of me that's sort of pushing me along. Well, now, with everything, I guess papers and things like that seem fine to most people, but I tend to work longer on things than a lot of people, and pay a lot of attention to little tiny details that aren't noticeable but are to me. So I'm into details and things, and I always know exactly what I'm going to write before I do, and get all my quotes and do the little tiny details and go through things a million times to make sure I'm saying the right thing. I don't just sort of start doing things and start writing in sort of a haphazard fashion. I do things I guess the whole system of it is important. I don't think the kids in the class really make that much of a difference to me, because I'm going to work the same way no matter what, because I'm not really a collaborative worker, and it doesn't really matter as much to me what other people do, as long as I'm doing the best that I can. The internal judge is more for myself than for anybody else. It would be in the case that if I were working on a project with somebody and they were not putting enough energy to my standards into the project, then that would be the case where I would judge others. But mostly, I judge myself much more than other people. For me, I always approach things one way, and I'm very into details and going over everything and being thorough about the entire, whatever the topic is. There is one way of doing things right for me, and that comes out in class too, because even when it comes to participating in class, what I don't consider any opinion right. I know this sounds bad, but and when I speak myself, I only want to say things that I think are right, and that's why I probably don't talk that much, because I think that's sort of a one thing to do. Everything is measured before I do it, measured for the correctness of it. learning to me, I mean, there is definitely a right side to it and a wrong side, and I think learning to me is more like gaining as much knowledge and trying to do things as well as I possibly can. In the newspaper, there is, to me, I spend a lot of time on details and things like that, and there is a right and a wrong, and I get sort of, I guess you could say, obsessive about certain things that really don't warrant that much obsession, that other people would never notice and things like that. And I put a lot of energy into small things that the normal person who would never really notice that I'd done. And that's in a lot of areas what I do, and with art too. And creative writing, it's the same thing, like all of the other things I do. I have a lot of trouble producing mass amounts of work because every little thing I do or every sentence I write, I delete off the computer and things like that, because everything, I'm constantly measuring how good things are, and that sort of gets in the way of progress. Say people are of secondary importance to getting the job done right. And even friends, I would say, come secondary, come after getting the job done for me, because I only do things after. I have to first get my things done, and then I can sort of relax and be with my friends and do things like that. I think it's necessary for people to give us ones a certain amount of room in the area of the sort of acknowledging the fact that we're going to be a little bit compulsive about things. And a lot of people, all through my lower school career at Milton Academy, I always got in my comments, she has to relax, she's like overdoing this and overdoing this. And I think people have to realize that that's just something that perfectionists do, and it's not really something you can change a lot of, and that we're just going to sometimes, I would say, grate on other people's nerves in that we have to get things done a certain way, but it's just a characteristic, and it's not really anything you can do anything about. I'm always like analyzing, never letting myself get taken away or dream. I never daydream, things like that. I'm always right on the material, sort of underlining things, writing notes, sort of constantly analyzing things all the time. I never really just let my emotions just take me away. That's why I don't feel like I'm touched by a lot of work and things like that, because usually I'm more thinking about it and analyzing it than really going inside of it.
Point 4 is another of the image types. 4s live in a rich emotional world. They have a sense of their own uniqueness. Yet, paradoxically, for 4s, their focus of attention goes not to what they have, but to what is missing. This focus influences their motivation for learning.
I guess when learning, I'm motivated by being interested in the material that we do, obviously. And I also like to know that when I'm done doing something, I don't like to focus on the product of my work, but I like to know that I've learned something. I can look back and say, this is what I know now about something. I like the process a lot. That's really important to me. My emotions, I think, do affect my work. When I'm in a good mood, when I'm feeling positive about myself and also about the material, then I do a lot better and I focus on stuff more. When I'm in a bad mood, I can really turn off to what we're doing, and I need to, a lot of times I find I need to sort of put myself in a better state of mind before I can do my homework or whatever. If something's bothering me, I need to sort it out, even just by myself. I noticed that I don't work as well in classes where my friends are in the class. I mean, writing papers and stuff, that's fine. But in a classroom situation, I'm much better off when there's no one. It does feel sort of like a distraction to me. I really like classes that are focused around discussion, but sometimes that can also get annoying. I like to talk a lot in class, but I don't like if no one's disagreeing or if it's just the discussion isn't going anywhere. It doesn't feel like we're accomplishing much. And I like it a lot when a teacher notices this and tries to steer the discussion in a way that we will be accomplishing what is supposed to get done. I like to have really intense relationships with people, but I can't do that with too many. And I find I have a close circle of friends, and it's nice to have that security, but I'm not totally I'm not very close to a lot of them. What pisses me off is when I find myself giving more of myself than I'm receiving. I'm very sensitive to other people, and I always notice how I'm like a shoulder to cry on for someone else, and a lot of times no one's there for me, and that bothers me a lot in my relationships. People who know more than me, who understand more than I do in a certain area that they teach, but I don't like to think of teachers as like sitting higher or whatever. I like the classes a lot where there's like a round table and we all sit around it, the teacher included, because I think teachers teach us a lot, especially in a place like Milton where we have such amazing faculty, but I think it's also important to remember that the students can also have really valuable ideas. Success is feeling comfortable with who you are and being happy about your own accomplishments, regardless of what other people think or how successful in terms of money or grades that you get. I think I already said this, but I don't really care about grades. They're not very important to me, except I do care about, you know, like getting into college, things like that, because I want to go to a place where I'm going to be happy eventually. So I like to write. I'm on speech team. I like to act a lot. I think different ways of expression are really important. Athletics, for other people, might be a way of expression, and I really like to, I'm not like an athlete, but I like to do intramural sports and stuff, but I think something creative is very important for everyone to have some sort of outlet. I actually haven't written in a while, and I feel sort of weird about it. I don't know if I'm ever going, like when I'm going to start that again. Really, I don't like competition at all. I was in a class with a friend of mine freshman year, and it really bothered me. I mean, I pushed myself, but it really bothered me how competitive she was, and I started sort of, it just was kind of an obstacle for me in the class because I found myself being competitive, and I don't like that at all, and that's partially why, I guess, I don't like having friends in my class, because before you know it, you start comparing grades, and then that gets important, and I don't like to think about myself as a letter to somebody. I noticed, especially this weekend, with other people around from different sort of cliques in the school, how it is really important to me how people view me, and I really don't like people to see me wrong. Do you know what I mean? I don't like to be viewed as something that I'm not, so I try and make it really clear to people who I am, and I like to get to know people who are from all different areas in the school, like socially and stuff, because I hate stereotypes, and I hate being viewed as something that's wrong.
Point 2 is also an image type. 2 struggle to identify their own needs, but instinctively know the needs of others. This is their focus of attention. In their motivation for learning, 2s require to know what others need.
I can tell what people want to hear, and then I can tell them that. And I think that happens with adults also. In a sense, that almost makes it easier for me to okay things that other people do when it's really not okay with me. If they do something that gets me upset, it's pretty easy for me to be understanding, because I can say, oh, well, you know, the type of person they are, you know, that's really wouldn't be such a big deal for them, and so it's easy for me to adjust. Well, I think with teachers, I'm not so sure that I can read teachers that well. I mean, I don't think I can do that quite as well. I think it's easier for me to learn when I'm motivated about something, because I get very excited when I'm motivated. And when a teacher is excited about what they're teaching, and that's kind of transfers on to me, that is helpful. And usually sometimes in classes that I enjoy or whatever, I don't always talk that much, partly I think because I probably have a fear of making a fool of myself or saying something that's completely untrue. But in classes where I'm comfortable or where I'm confident, and that's not only the classes where I'm doing well, it's just the ones I feel confident, or I feel like the teacher appreciates what you say, or they want to hear more of your opinion, and it's not necessarily there's only one right way to do something. I think I talk more in that, and so I become more involved with the class in a personal way. I find that we studied the Vietnam War recently in history, and we watched a movie on the Vietnam War, and for me it was so hard to watch that I wanted to get up and leave a few times. It was just very, very difficult for me to watch, and not so much because of the war, but just seeing the kids. They were really kids before they went, and how naive they were, and I could relate to that in a sense. So I wrote about that because it was very significant for me. And I think that I do try and relate, in English and history mostly, try and relate things to my own life, and that's what writers influence me the most, are the ones where I can see, in whom I can see a sense of myself, or I can see that they understand things that I experience, because, you know, I can relate to that more, I think. I like to be organized about things, but I don't feel like I have to get everything done the first second I find out about it. I'm not exactly a procrastinator, but I think it's important that you have time to breathe in between, you know, every few minutes or every few hours in schoolwork. When I care about someone, I care about them very, very deeply, I think. I think sometimes I get very, very emotionally involved in what I do. So sometimes it's frustrating when I don't do well on something that I really liked, and sometimes it's great when I really put a lot of effort in and, you know, you get satisfaction out of doing well from it. Sometimes when I do well with the teacher and I have a pretty consistent grade period with them, but which I have to work very hard to uphold, sometimes I feel like if I do badly, that's going to be pretty bad because it'll give a bad impression or whatever. But I don't think that their expectations motivate me. I think that I motivate myself, but it's important to me that I uphold standards that people hold for me.
Point 8, an anger type, lives with an innate sense of power and control. Confrontation for the 8 is a way of reading the world, of establishing where the power is, of knowing who has control. Exerting control is a way of moving through an inherently unjust world.
Learning is both like, it depends on my mood at the time. Sometimes it's something I enjoy, and sometimes it's something I do because I have to. Probably more it's the means to an end, but it's not the worst way to get there. I mean, if I learn, I become educated, then I can have intelligent conversations with intelligent people and survive in the world, hopefully make some money, things like that. But it's not a horrible thing. I believe, if I'm not sort of arguing something, that's why in a debate, for instance, ever since I think I remember my first debate in like 5th grade, we had a class debate for some reason, and I was on a con side that I didn't agree with, and I just didn't have much to say. It's very hard for me to argue something I don't agree with. But when I get the pro side and I'm pro, or if I get the con side and I'm con, if I'm in line with that view, I am right out there, I'm arguing, I'm really letting the other side have it. And I really, for some reason, I work much better that way. But when I get behind something, I'm a force. I mean, I do stuff, I'm strong, I'm loud, boisterous, perhaps even pushy and obnoxious. But I'm there, I'm a presence in that case. In English class today, there were about 6 books to go around for 12 people. And sort of one section of the class had 5 people and 2 books, one had 4 people in 1 book, one had 2 books and 3 people. And no one was sort of passing the book around, and no one was trying to get a book for as many people as possible. And I just sort of said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, we're going to put this with you, you slide your book down, you share with him. And that by the end when I was done, everybody was sort of like, wait a second, but everyone had a book. Everyone was sort of like, how do you do that? And it's sort of like, I just started getting annoyed. I was like, this is dumb, we're wasting time, let's just do this. And so I did it. And people did what I said, and it worked out. Life's a game in that, I mean, there are pawns to be used, and there are people who will use you, and you got to fight against that. It's a matter of being the one who moves the chess pieces, of being one of the movers and shakers, as the phrase goes. One of the people who gets things done. I want to be one of those people. I don't have to have the entire world look back on me and say, now that was a great man, in the way that they might say that about Lincoln or someone like that, or Churchill. But as long as some people look back and say that was a man who got things done, and a community of some sort, the business community, the whatever community I become, I give myself to. I want them to remember me. A soft touch when necessary, a hard touch when necessary. That if someone is not getting the job done and you've given them the soft touch already, you give them the hard touch and you say, you get this done or you're fired. But if someone is having trouble and you know that, say, like, that their parents are getting divorced or something, then you give them some lenience. You give a person a chance to prove that they can do the job, and if they fail, if they show that they're not capable of it, then you get rid of them, because you can't. In what you're doing, you need strong people, and if people are going to be weak and not able to get things done, then you can't deal with that. You can't. It takes too much out of you to have to always be doing that. You have to find capable people who won't require you to always be pampering them on their back. I hate to be belittled, especially when I know I'm right. I hate people who argue in a way that just doesn't listen to my viewpoint. My sister, I think, once has occasionally done this. She's grown out of it now, but when she was a little kid, we were having an argument about something, and instead of listening to my viewpoint, she just put her hands over her ears and started screaming so that she couldn't hear me. It drove me absolutely crazy. I wanted to absolutely put my fist through a wall. I hate to be not listened to. I'd rather someone hear me and disagree than not hear me at all. Sometimes if I can't get across to a teacher, I'll sort of blame it on them. Even if it might be my fault if I'm not doing what they ask or something. I'll say, oh, it's just that he or she doesn't like my writing if I'm not trying as hard as I might. But because I want to avoid that sense that I haven't done it to my utmost, that I haven't been able to do it right and to do it in the way that he or she wants in order to get the job done, to be capable. Capable is a big word for me. In terms of emotionally, when I feel something, I feel it really strongly. Just like when I feel like I'm behind something. If I feel love, I feel hate, I feel sadness, I get in moods, and I may change quickly, but while I'm in them, they're deep, and a depression will keep me down the entire day, and then I'll get a good night's sleep, wake up the next day, and I'll be happy all day, and I'll get a C on a paper, and I'm happy right now. It's not going to bother me. And then maybe a couple more things will happen, and when I get into something, as I said before, I'm all behind it. My whole self goes into that feeling.
Point 5, a fear type, moves away from people. By detaching from the outer world and realizing thoughts and emotions in a rich inner life, 5s keep their fear at bay. The focus of attention for 5s lies in minimizing participation, creating distance and perspective, while at the same time cultivating the sense of being an observer.
I don't consciously get motivated to learn, but something will grab me, and if I like it, like actually that Enneagram book, I read that in 3 hours, because I kind of started it and I was kind of skeptical, and I approached the whole thing with, I don't want to be classified this easily, and I kind of read it, and it was very interesting. I still am kind of angry that it classified me so well so quickly, but I guess it's stuff like that, or certain things grab me, and if I'm taken in by something, then I won't stop. I'd like to do the whole thing and just keep going. I hate being interrupted. I like to focus on one thing and just learn everything about it. I like ideas and insights and new ways of looking at things, and I like looking at things and just kind of categorizing them and systematically connecting everything to everything else. You get this big picture and this interconnectedness, and it's really exciting. I do a lot of stuff with technical stuff with theatrical, and I like to make videos. And sometimes it's fun to make videos, not necessarily when you have to shoot all the footage yourself, but when you can get good footage to just kind of connect and mess around with, it's a lot of fun. I like to write. I hate saying it because I don't like to be thought of as a writer. In that kind of sense, I like to, I don't know, it's different. I don't write prose. I can't write prose. Prose gets I get too carried away when I write prose. Poetry is much better. I don't like the word poetry to begin with, because it's very artsy-fartsy kind of, and it's that's not, I don't know, what I kind of like. But I don't write structured poetry. It's more like, but it's more controlled because every word has to kind of carry something and fit in, and if it works right, it's great. If it doesn't, what you can do with poetry is you can write, 3 pages long and then condense it into a paragraph and then just make it all work. And another thing that drives me nuts is when things happen too slowly. I don't like it when things happen too slowly, when things kind of drag. I need this kind of energy. That's what I like about theater is I hate all this stuff for the first month of any production that you have to build, cast for this, and everything kind of drags on. But the week when you put on a show is incredible. It's wonderful because it's just like everything clicks and there's a series and things have to get online by this time and it's just exciting. And it has to be done right, and there's kind of a definite way to make it good, and then on top of that you can bring in artistic skill and you can just make something that would just kind of flow together, and it's kind of got it. I can get very emotional. I hide it as much as possible. I only they're, I don't know, 2 completely different planes for me. There's me, and then there's kind of the me that's been rehearsed to do this. I'm not, well, I guess I am here right now, because in the beginning I certainly wasn't, though, because I don't know, I don't like being in front of the camera. I like to kind of hide. I can't really explain it, but I get this awful dread. I want to kind of melt. As far as like giving a speech in class, in a way it's kind of fun because I can kind of get my speech going and then get out of there and like kind of watch everyone in the room while I'm doing this. Certainly, there are times when I can remember more and absorb more than when I can't. When I'm in a really bad mood, I absorb a lot. When I'm in a really great mood, I don't know. When I'm in a really great mood, I think I actually absorb less and kind of are more with people, though. And when I'm kind of neutral mood, I absorb everything. Like, especially if I'm traveling or if I'm in a new place, like I would always know in my grandmother's house where the things were that she was looking for, like anything. Because I like to know where things are, and I like to look around people's houses and things. And so I would know where absolutely everything was. And, even stuff I wasn't really supposed to know where it was, I would know where it was. People would be, I wonder where this went. Well, I saw that in, X, Y, or Z, and they would just be like, oh, that's interesting. As I said, there are 2 planes. The people on the lower plane, it's kind of like, I deal with them, and then I get away as fast as I can. I really dislike dealing with people. As far as people in the classroom, or people in general, I don't have a lot of emotion connected to them. And if people can get, hurt really badly and be bleeding and things, and I don't really get upset, and I don't get on edge. In emergency situations, I usually remain very flat. If you can get me going, I will get going. If you can't, it's just I will say the minimum and kind of move along.
Point 7, another fear type, is focused on future plans and pleasant options. When reality bites, 7s escape into an inner world where there are no limits. High-energy 7s have many balls in the air. The focus of attention is on always keeping them up there.
Well, what motivates me to learn is for like acquiring knowledge and kind of gaining an insight and experience into what's going to help me later on in life, and it's going to be interesting rather than just for a grade or for college or something like that. I do more because I enjoy what I'm reading. When you think about it, like you can learn some lessons from it. And that's what interested me in reading the play, and that's what I wrote my essay on when we finished the play, and that to me was it has been one of my favorite academic experiences since I've been at Milton, and that was because it was one of those things that'll help me later on in life. Now that I have this like insight into what goes on through people's minds and stuff, and the grade at the end, like I got a good grade on it, but that was more because like I really liked what I was doing rather than because I thought, well, gee, I need to get a good grade on this to get into a good college or something. Even if the subject matter I don't find interesting at first, if the teacher is excited about it, then I'm going to get excited about it most of the time. But it's generally not the students, like the other students in the class. I'm kind of more of a self-motivator, but like if it comes from an authority figure like a teacher, then then it kind of helps me to get motivated. For me to regard someone else as an authority figure, that person has to get my respect before first, when I first meet somebody, it's, at least now, it's as if, like, you're just a person, and, like, you're an equal. But if that person shows that they are worthy of being, like, an authority figure, and they're worthy of respect, then they'll have my respect, and I'll, like, follow them. Like, I'll really follow them and really heed what they're saying. But if they don't, and even if they're considered, like, the headmaster of a school or, like, the president of the United States, if I don't think they're worthy of respect, then they're not going to get my respect. Commitment is, to me, I guess, working hard on something and, like, doing something. And I'll do something like write a paper, read a book, write a speech because I want to do it, not because someone tells me to do it. I don't commit myself if I don't want to do something. And a lot of times if, like, I find that it's not interesting, I'm not going to do it. It's just there's really, like, there's so much happening around in the world. There's really, and life is kind of short, that there's really no point in, like, spending time just like doing something that you're not interested in or something you're not going to enjoy. When I'm really, like, pressured, I think I'll just try and do stuff by myself and just do it in my head and, like, work it out and do it myself. When I'm feeling secure, then I'm more apt to go out and, like, talk to people and get their insight on what's going on. I'm in my head a lot, like, I think a lot in my head. Like, I'll, like, analyze a situation and look at different, like, not a school situation, I mean, like a social situation. I'll think about what everyone is thinking about in the group and how, like, person X over there why he's not being involved in the conversation, or why person Y over there, why she is not, like, why she appears to be upset or something like that. And I do a lot of, like, analytical stuff like that, like analyzing what's going on in other people's heads, or trying to. I don't usually tune out in class that quickly. Like, I have a pretty good attention span, I think, for a kid. If I'm not interested, it's just, like, if I'm not interested, like, I guess, like, my subconscious just switches off, and I kind of withdraw a little bit, and I go back into my head and start thinking about, like, different things rather than what's going on in class. I kind of draw some sort of pleasure from, like, having a schedule which I have to adhere to, and, like, I have, like, it's kind of weird, I think, but when I have, like, things that I have to do and, like, places to go, people to see, like, I tend to get excited, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I've got, like, things to do. I'm not, like, sitting around doing nothing. I'm getting involved, doing stuff. And that's really cool. I like that.
You have just seen 9 perspectives on what motivates learning. Central to each is the focus of attention of the types, demonstrating how the constant habits of mind affect learning. This video is dedicated to honoring the differences among us.
All things are made sacred by relation to it, one as much as another. All things are dissolved to their center by their cause, and in the universe miracle, petty and particular miracles disappear. If, therefore, a man claims to know and speak of God, and carries you backwards to the phraseology of some old molder nation in another country, in another world, believe him not.